ever seen some of these just incredible scenes there. And you see some of these protesters are now picking up projectiles, rocks there. Look at that. Wow. Hurling them at these white vans. And you see there the driver's side window almost completely shattered. So like I said, this is of a piece of what we have seen of how some of these demonstrators, these anti-ICE protesters, are taking matters into their own hands in order to impede and thwart federal agents from carrying out these raids at farms like these. So just yet another development in this story here. It's a good segue, though. We do want to keep going with this story as we have been throughout the course of the afternoon here. I do want to talk about some of the legal questions as well. We're going to bring in some of our legal analysts and colleagues in just a moment. So you can see there these white vans at pretty high speeds there, kind of hightailing it out of there. So we are not entirely sure who the white vans belong to, what kind of federal agency. We did have reporting from the Associated Press that ICE, CBP, and Border Patrol have all been on the scene there throughout the course of the afternoon. So viewer discretion is advised. We still have more of these demonstrators there on site. In the meantime, though, we do have, like I said, some of our legal analysts, including Senior Legal Fellow at the Heritage Foundation, our friend Zach Smith, joining us via Zoom. We're going to keep the live pictures up, though. Zach, thanks for being with us. We wanted to bring you on to talk about so many of these legal battles having to do with illegal immigration enforcement. We're going to get into the birthright citizenship question in just a moment here. But I want to talk about this other lawsuit that's now percolating in Southern California. The parties were in court today, the ACLU, other immigrant advocate and rights groups, essentially suing the federal government, saying ICE agents and other federal agents who do conduct these raids and carry them out, they want to curtail where they can do that. What say you? Will they be successful? According to our reporting, Bill Malugin saying the federal judge here is going to rule in their favor soon.
Well, Bill has gotten really a scoop in this case. He had a lengthy post on X about it. And look, if that turns out to be the order that the judge ultimately issues, I think she's styled her ruling as a tentative ruling where she could still potentially change her mind, although that seems somewhat unlikely if she's given this level of thought to it. It's very troubling indeed, because at least according to the reports that Bill and others have made, she's purporting to prohibit ICE and other immigration authorities from conducting immigration enforcement certain locations at certain stores. Immigration authorities would no longer be able to conduct immigration enforcement activities at places like Home Depot. They'd be limited in when and where they could stop certain vehicles. And so this would create a host of problems. Now, of course, the government is saying that they're following all applicable constitutional statutory law, plus relevant rules and regulations from the various agencies. So I suspect if the judge does ultimately issue this order, that it will be appealed in very short order and may make its way up to the U.S. Supreme Court if the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals doesn't step in and stop it.
Okay, so now it seems like the chopper overhead SkyFOX kind of just following this white van. And I don't want to speculate. We don't know what's in the van, who's driving the van. I don't want to speculate there. What I do want to do is show our viewers the moment when some of these protesters essentially picked up rocks and threw them at the van here. Take a look at this. And there you can see it. Wow, look at that. Of course, some of these protesters were wearing hoodies, hiding their faces. That's been a question surrounding this entire debate. Throwing rocks there. Look at that. Wow. And you see some of them impeding the egress of the cars and the vehicles themselves, using their bodies, their bikes, other cars to shield these vans from leaving this farm there. And I think it is safe to, assume that they don't want these vans to leave because they are conducting these raids, rounding up some of these undocumented laborers who work on these farms, and then taking them and processing them and possibly getting ready to first detain and then deport them. That's how this goes, right, Zach?
Yeah, that is right. Absolutely. And of course, there's relevant investigation that happens as well. But, Andrew, I would push back. These are not protesters, peaceful protesters, which is protected by the First Amendment, which I think is something we all recognize and respect. That is a criminal act those individuals were committing, particularly if they were committing acts against federal law enforcement agents who may have been in those vans. And so this is a very serious matter. And I think, unfortunately, this is a result of a lot of the heated rhetoric we've heard from so many on the left over the past several weeks, really demonizing ICE agents, demonizing Border Patrol agents, and other federal law enforcement officers who are putting their lives on the line day in and day out to help protect our communities.
Yeah, so, Zach, I want to move our conversation. The thrust of it is going to be about birthright citizenship, but we couldn't not show these images. We'd be remiss if we didn't, and it's a huge story today. But you and I were on the air, that was now a week and a half ago, when we got the Supreme Court ruling curtailing nationwide injunctions in lower federal courts nationwide. Why did we get one today in New Hampshire about the very same issue, birthright citizenship, and it is nationwide? It stops President Trump's executive order from taking effect anywhere in the country. I thought the Supreme Court justices just ruled on this, curtailing nationwide injunctions. What's going on here?
Yeah, and I laugh. It's a very serious matter, certainly no laughing matter, but I laugh because in some ways it is like deja vu all over again. You're right. Many people thought this issue had been resolved, but apparently it has not. And the reason the judge, or at least the rationale this judge today in New Hampshire used to issue what looks like a nationwide injunction is he used a class certification mechanism. If you go back and you read the Supreme Court's opinion, Justice Amy Coney Barrett and a majority of the justices said that a single federal district court judge could not issue a nationwide injunction. They left a little wiggle room. They said there may be instances where you could have a class certified, and because the class could be very big or very broad, that in that instance, an injunction may be appropriate to issue. Now, Justice Samuel Alito, he recognized the danger in this language. He wrote separately to emphasize the stringent requirements that typically accompany class certification. He urged lower federal district court judges not to loosen those requirements or to misapply them to try to reach certain preferred results. But unfortunately, it looks like Justice Alito's fears have come true with this ruling today in New Hampshire that purported to issue an injunction based on a very broad class of some born and some yet to be born children.
Yeah, this was a class action lawsuit. It was filed on behalf of pregnant women, two parents and their infants. It's among numerous cases challenging the very same executive order we've been discussing. And remember, this executive order, it was high on President Trump's priority list. It was signed, I believe, on either the first day he was in office or the second or the third here. And as you have been mentioning, we have been discussing that issue is that clause in the 14th Amendment, which states, quote, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. That clause, subject to the jurisdiction thereof, is the one that is so hotly debated. But the justices, federal judges, they're not debating the clause at question, are they? This could return. This could get back to the Supreme Court in no time. Will they finally grapple with the constitutional issue or not?
Well, I think many are hopeful that they will finally grapple with the constitutional issue, that very important issue of what the 14th Amendment requires, whether it does in fact require birthright citizenship. And I think the president is right. There are very good arguments that it does not. But before they can get to that issue, they are likely to have to grapple with these procedural issues once again. Now, the injunction that the judge issued today, the class that he's tentatively certified, essentially, it's not as broad as the class that the plaintiffs were asking for. He did not include the parents. He recognized many of the parents may have different immigration statuses, they may have different circumstances. He said that ordinarily courts would conduct discovery or do a mini investigation into whether or not a class could be certified, but because things had to move so quickly, he could not do it in this case.
So one of the plaintiffs says this, quote, "This is going to protect every single child around the country from this lawless, unconstitutional, and cruel executive order," going so far as to saying this is cruel. You and I discussed the last case that made its way up to the high court, and that there had been some concern, or at least the criticism of however the justices might decide ultimately on that question. They didn't in the last ruling, that there would be this patchwork piecemeal system in the United States where, say, if you were born in New Jersey, you're a U.S. citizen. But if you were born in Alabama, it's subject to the jurisdiction thereof, so to speak.
Right. Well, and that would be as a result of if there were different court interpretations of how the 14th Amendment should be interpreted and how that should be applied to the individuals born within the geographic jurisdiction of those different courts. That's why I suspect the Supreme Court is going to have to ultimately step in and weigh in on this question. And look, I think the president's executive order recognized that there needs to be clarity. That's why it was a prospective order only. There was a period of time before its requirements would take effect. And so I think there were efforts to avoid the type of disruption that many seem to be worried about now. But look, this is something that the Supreme Court will need to step in, will need to resolve, hopefully, and they'll do it very quickly.
All right, Zach Smith with the Heritage Foundation. Zach, always good to see you. Great stuff, great insight. Talk soon.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Okay, in the meantime here, we are fastly approaching the top of the next hour here. Let's stay on the topic of illegal immigration. Take a look at this. Still a massive crowd there at this farm in Southern California. Well, our colleagues at Fox 11, including reporter Christina Gonzalez, she's there on the ground as we speak. We are trying to get her on the line and speak with her. She filed this report on what is going on down on the ground. Here's what she had to say. Here's what she found.
The crowd runs as canisters of gas hit the ground off Laguna Road, where protesters have been facing off with Homeland Security officers carrying out an operation at a local farm. The only option is to take cover with protesters behind a vehicle.
Oh, are you guys okay?
Yeah, we're okay.
You're all right? Oh, that's good.
From SkyFOX, you can see quite a few people lined up, sitting on the ground at one of the farms. You can also see more federal personnel using gas to push back protesters who've gotten word of the operation.
Get water!
But more people show up to continue the standoff on one side of the barricaded road and the other, where trucks are trying to get in, even emergency vehicles. Ventura County Fire confirming their units were dispatched to provide medical aid along the road for people who'd called 911 after getting hit with the gas or rubber bullets.
If you do get attacked by tear gas and or rubber bullets, just please ask for help. There is a bunch of water and milk here. Help each other out.
Military helicopters can be seen flying low onto the fields, a maneuver generally used to flush out people hiding. No one on the ground's answering our questions or those of people trying to reach family members who were working at the farms.
My mom was here and I try to contact her, but she doesn't answer me. There's nothing I can really do.
All right, we thank Fox 11 Los Angeles reporter Christina Gonzalez. Let's go back now. We have a ground shot. I believe this is Christina's camera, or at least her photographer's. Viewer discretion is advised. This is a live picture right now down on the ground. Actually, let's take the other shot. It's a better angle here. Take a look at this. Not entirely sure what is going on here. You see some type of official that is being swarmed by these demonstrators. And from what it looks like, he has fallen. His back is all muddy. I'm not entirely sure what's going on. Remember, viewer discretion is advised. There's some middle fingers going up and the like, but we don't know what's going on. We don't know why this individual has been singled out. We do know, though, that he is being swarmed. He's being harangued. He's being harassed. You can see that there. He's being singled out. We don't know for what. We don't know where or who this individual is from. We don't know if he's some type of, undercover plainclothes federal agent, if he's an employee of some of these agricultural farms in the area. We just don't know. So, like I said, viewer discretion is advised. You see, though, other demonstrators, other protesters trying to call off some of their, fellow comrades, so to speak. The guy now with his phone in his hand. So, until we find out more information, we're going to step out of this. We don't know what's going on right now. We don't know why this individual is being singled out. But you can see the front and back of him. It was extremely, extremely muddy. Looks like he's getting into his car. Okay. So maybe Fox 11 in Los Angeles will let us know what was going on, why this person was singled out by these protesters, by these demonstrators who really hounded the guy as these illegal immigration enforcement actions continue to take place in parts of the country, especially there in Southern California. Okay, in the meantime, as we approach now the top of the hour, I'm Andrew Kraft. Thanks so much for being with us here. Still one more, though, top headline on some of these illegal immigration top stories here. I want to focus our efforts briefly